especially from the Jammu region, they have lined up here to get themselves enrolled in the Indian Army. The process has begun and now the security checks are being done, after which their physical examination will be done. The youth from Jammu, Samba and other districts, they have come here to give the physical test, after which they hope that they will become part of the prestigious Indian Army. This is the first recruitment under the Agnipath scheme that has recently been launched by the government of India. Clearly the response is massive. We have seen how the youth from various parts of the country have come forward to take part in the recruitment rally. We'll try to speak to some of the youth. आप कहाँ से आए हैं?
मानसर।
मुझे ये बताइए, क्या मोटो लेकर यहाँ पर आए हैं? देश सेवा का मोटो है, क्या कहना चाहेंगे?
देश सेवा के लिए आए हैं सर।
शुरू से ही भारतीय सेना में जाना चाहते हैं?
तीसरी भर्ती हमारी शुरू से ही।
अच्छा, लगातार अटेम्प्ट कर रहे हैं?
जैसा।
तीसरी भर्ती है इनका कहना है। कुछ और लोगों से बात करते हैं। आप कहाँ से आए हैं?
गोरखवाड़ा से।
मुझे सांबा से आए?
जी।
लगातार भर्ती में जाना चाहते हैं?
जी सर।
क्या करना चाहते हैं सेना में जाके?
देश सेवा
करना चाहते हैं।
जी।
उम्मीद है इस बार पूरी तैयारी है?
पूरी तैयारी है।
देखिए किस तरह से the youth from the different areas have come here so as to be part of the Indian Army and also to ensure that they serve the country in a better possible way. आपका नाम?
सर सुरेश।
सुरेश कहाँ से हैं?
सर बीजेपुर से।
मुझे ये बताइए, भारतीय सेना में जाने का मोटो क्या?
सर देश के लिए सेवा करने के लिए।
परिवार में और भी कोई है भारतीय सेना?
नो सर।
पहली जनरेशन?
भारत माता की जोरिए बोलो, भारत माता की।
So लगातार you can see that the morale remains high and they want to serve the country by going into the Indian Army. This is the morale of the youth of the country who have come forward to be part of the Agnipath scheme. With Sarjeevan Kumar, Gursimran Singh for Republic Media Network.
Meanwhile, the IAF held Foundation Day celebrations outside in Delhi for the first time, in line with the objective to make it a public event and increase public involvement as well, following which the IAF also conducted a full dress rehearsal in Chandigarh. Here's a full report.
The Indian Air Force conducted a full dress rehearsal for the 90th IAF Day celebrations over Sukhna Lake in Chandigarh. Watch the Indian Air Force might on display ahead of the celebrations on October 8th.
The Harvard was long used as the advanced trainer to train a generation.
From light combat helicopter Prachand to Chinook helicopter were all part of the rehearsals. The earlier fleets were joined by the latest jets, be it MiGs, Tejas or Sukhoi.
The pilots now
The rehearsals kicked off with the paratroopers demonstrating their diving exercises, following the drills conducted by the Mi-17 aircraft Chinook helicopter. Over 40,000 people are expected to turn up for the IAF Foundation Day event. Notably, this is the first time the Indian Air Force Day related events and celebrations will be held out of the national capital at the Hindan Air Base. The objective being the IAF spectacle should be taken out of the confines of an air base among the people in order to enhance people engagement. Bureau Report, Republic TV.
Now, India participated in a UNSC debate on strengthening the fight against financing of armed groups and terrorists in Africa. MOSMEA also made some significant remarks. Here are a few excerpts.
Minister of State for External Affairs represented India in the UN Security Council debate on peace and security in Africa. During the debate, India raised serious concerns over terror groups. India said that ISIL and Al-Qaeda linked terror groups in Africa are attempting to control the political agenda, which is a self-defeating goal.
ISIL and Al-Qaeda linked and inspired groups in Africa are embedding themselves in multiple domestic conflicts, attempt to influence and control the political agenda.
India said that these terror groups are embedding themselves in multiple domestic conflicts. India raised concerns that engaging such groups in national reconciliation will only provide legitimacy to terrorism.
The initiatives such as the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, regulations against money laundering and terrorist financing of CMAC have helped in creating institutional frameworks in the African states. These regional and sub-regional measures need to be strengthened further in line with the standards prescribed by the Financial Action Task Force.
The Minister of State for External Affairs highlighted that these terror groups have put an elaborate revenue network to support their activities.
We need to recognize the fact that terrorism, like armed conflicts, is expanding in Africa. Al-Qaeda and ISIL affiliated terrorist groups in different parts of Africa have gathered significant strength in the recent years, thriving on the illegal mining of artisan gold, rare minerals, gemstones, uranium, coal, timber, etc., through illegal trade networks facilitated by transnational criminal networks.
Earlier, addressing the UN Security Council, India's permanent representative to the UN, Ruchira Kamboj, registered strong condemnation of North Korea's ballistic missile launch over Japan. India said that such acts affect the peace and security of the region and beyond.
These follow the launch of the ICBM by the DPRK in March this year, which was discussed in this council, as well as other successive launches. These launches constitute a violation of the resolutions of the UN Security Council relating to the DPRK. They affect the peace and security of the region and beyond.
Meanwhile, India has once again reiterated the interest in the permanent membership at the UN Security Council. Bureau Report, Republic TV.
Well, this morning coming up on the other side, 44 European countries from Iceland to Turkey meet, stand up against Russia's offensive against Ukraine.
It's my cry, it's my feeling that SC/ST, when they are represented to high position, they become dumb and deaf.
जिस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग उन्होंने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति आदरणीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के लिए किया है, वो चिंताजनक और दुखद है, अशोभनीय है।
One of your leaders has abused the president. Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul, one of your leaders has abused the president. He's called her deaf and dumb. Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul, would you choose to react? Mr. Rahul!
Multilateral and bilateral. In both the cases, General Assembly is going to be a big boost to Indian law enforcement as well as to the Indian image of having come a long way in the last 75 years.
General Assembly, a lot of discussions are going to take place and a fruitful engagement would be there between India and Interpol. There would be bilaterals, there will be multilaterals.
This session in Delhi will be a landmark session. There could be a rethinking on the part of many of the countries which refuse to go an extra mile to help member nations.
How did that woman who blew herself up and killed those Chinese in Karachi, she belonged to an educated family. Who told the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan terrorists that it was okay to kill soldiers or kill innocent people in the market. Pakistan thought that they would rear and breed these snakes, and these snakes would bite only their neighbors. And this entire thing about secularization of jihad is just another Pakistani ploy. Pakistan does not want the responsibility, but it wants to keep funding jihad.
Election, we broke into a dialogue with the Secretary General, managed to convince them that this being the 75th year of our independence, it is in the fitness of things that we host this event, and that is how it was unanimously accepted.
IC-814, the flight that was hijacked, and then of course the famous match fixing, and then of course Bofors. We were able to get first the Switzerland's cooperation, then the Malaysian government's cooperation. So all this would not have been possible without our seeking the assistance of the Interpol.
The assets which are stashed away, which are taken away as dirty money, and they are stashed away, and for the recovery of that, there is an initiative which India, CBI and Interpol has been jointly taking against organized crime, particularly the one which has been funding terrorism.
It's my cry, it's my feeling that SC/ST, when they are represented to have position, they become dumb and deaf.
जिस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग उन्होंने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति आदरणीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के लिए किया है, वो चिंताजनक और दुखद है, अशोभनीय है।
Nice weather. Get on the bobber. 42 bobber. Why do they call it a bobber? But does it matter? What matters is where are those birds off to? Southern hemisphere. Left. Right. Airplane mode. Rocket mode. 100. 110. Gravel ahead. Hill ahead. Up the hill road. Down a rabbit hole. Take the first exit. Have second thoughts? Take a chance. Worth it. Totally worth it.
The headlines from across the globe in World This Morning. French author Annie Ernaux awarded Nobel Prize in Literature for work that illuminates the murky corners of family and society. 44 European countries from Iceland to Turkey meet stand up against Russia's offensive against Ukraine. President Joe Biden pardons thousands convicted of marijuana possession in the US, orders review of federal pot laws. Mega drug bust in Argentina. Half a ton of narcotics seized, 6 armed men arrested. Mass shooting reported in Thailand daycare center. Death toll rises to 36. Welcome to this edition of World This Morning here on Republic. I'm Rukma. And in our top story, we start off with breaking news coming in from the United States as US President Joe Biden has now taken steps to overhaul US policy on marijuana. The steps were taken on Thursday as President Biden pardoned thousands of us, or rather he took the steps to pardon thousands of people with federal offenses for simple marijuana possession and initiating a review of how the drug is classified. President Biden said thousands of people with prior federal convictions could be denied employment, housing or educational opportunities, and his executive action would relieve such collateral consequences.
I'm announcing a pardon for all prior federal offenses for the simple possession of marijuana. There are thousands of people who are convicted for marijuana possession who may be denied employment, housing, or educational opportunities as a result of that conviction. My pardon will remove this burden on them. And that's before you address the racial disparities around who suffers the consequences. While white and black and brown people use marijuana at similar rates, black and brown people are arrested, prosecuted, and convicted at disproportionately higher rates.
So it's a major policy decision by President Joe Biden that could bring much needed relief to thousands of those convicted for simple marijuana possession in the United States of America. Moving on now to other top stories from across the globe. Leaders of 44 European countries stretching from Iceland all the way to Turkey met to stand up against Russia's war on Ukraine as an energy crisis and high inflation fueled by the conflict wreak havoc on their economies. Here's a detailed report.
As energy crisis and high inflation fueled by the conflict wreak havoc on European countries' economies, the leaders of 44 European countries stretching from Iceland all the way to Turkey meet in what many said was a united stand against Russia's war on Ukraine. The inaugural summit of the European political community being held in the Czech Republic involves the 27 European Union member countries, aspiring partners in the Balkans and Eastern Europe, as well as neighbors like Britain and Turkey. Britain is the only country to have left the European Union and is backed by German Chancellor Olaf Scholz.
Das ist gut für den Frieden, für die Sicherheitsordnung, das ist gut für die ökonomische Entwicklung und für die Prosperität. Und selbstverständlich ist es auch gut, weil die Europäische Union dann auch ihre Beziehungen zu ihren Nachbarn, von denen viele ja auch Mitglieder der Europäischen Union werden wollen, verbessern kann.
Arriving at the summit, Macron said that the gathering was about building strategic closeness.
Et c'est montrer d'abord un message d'unité de notre Europe, et ensuite pour tous les Européens, qu'ils soient membres ou non de l'Union européenne, c'est bâtir une intimité stratégique. Et l'objectif, c'est d'abord de partager une même lecture de la situation qui touche notre Europe, de bâtir aussi une stratégie commune, et donc une conversation stratégique qui jusqu'alors n'existait pas vraiment.
The meeting is taking place with Russia's war on Ukraine in its 8th month and as pressure builds to allow Ukraine to join the EU. The summit was to kick off with an opening ceremony followed by a series of meetings where the leaders will discuss the key challenges Europe faces. That is security, energy, climate, and the dire economic situation and migration. No European Union money or programs are on offer and no formal declaration will be issued after the summit. Agency report, Republic TV.
French author Annie Ernaux, who has fearlessly mined her own biography to explore life in France since the 1940s, has been awarded this year's Nobel Prize in Literature for her work that the Nobel Decision Board says illuminates the murky corners of memory, family, and society.
French author Annie Ernaux, who mined her own biography to explore life in France since the 1940s, was awarded this year's Nobel Prize in Literature for work that illuminates murky corners of memory, family, and society. The Swedish Academy said 82-year-old Ernaux was recognized for the courage and clinical acuity with which she uncovers the roots, estrangements, and collective restraints of personal memory.
Annie Ernaux's writing is subordinated throughout to the process of time, and nowhere else does the power of social conventions over our lives play such an important role as in Les Années. It appeared in 28. In English, The Years. It is a most ambitious project and has been called the first collective autobiography. It won her an international reputation and a raft of followers and literary disciples.
She is the first French literature laureate since Patrick Modiano in 2014. Erno started out writing autobiographical novels but quickly abandoned fiction in favor of memoirs. Her more than 20 books, most of them very short, chronicle events in her life and the lives of those around her. They present uncompromising portraits of sexual encounters, abortion, illness and the deaths of her parents. Erno describes her style as flat writing, aiming for a very objective view of the events she is describing, unshaped by florid description or overwhelming emotions. Erno was born in 1940 and grew up in the small town of Yvetot in Normandy. She studied at Rouen University and later taught at the secondary school. From 1977 to 2000, she was a professor at the Centre National d'Enseignement par Correspondance. Her debut was Le More Vide, published in 1974 in France and as cleaned out in English in 1990. It was her fourth book, La Place or A Man's Place, that was her literary breakthrough, where she wrote about her relationship with her father. Her 2000 novel Happening depicts the consequences of illegal abortion. Her most critically acclaimed book is The Years, published in 2008 and describing herself and wider French society from the end of the World War II to the present day. Unlike in previous books, in The Years, Erno writes about herself in the third person, calling her character she rather than I. The book received numerous awards and honors. A Girl's Story from 2016 follows a young woman's coming of age in the 1950s. Erno is the 17th woman among the 190 Nobel Literature laureates. Agency report for Republic TV.
In other international news, Russian state TV released footage of what it said was training of newly mobilized recruits in the Kherson region. The video featured military exercises in urban environments as trainees learned to neutralize and bypass explosive devices and dig trenches. Russian President Vladimir Putin says he is working on the assumption that the situation will stabilize so that Russia can quietly develop the territories that he annexed from Ukraine. This comes as Putin has annexed 4 regions in Ukraine in violation of international laws. Police in Argentina announced they have arrested 3 men from Peru and 3 from Paraguay with almost half a ton of pure cocaine brought by land from Peru protected by heavily armed men. Police say the drug, after being cut, could supply the populous suburbs of Buenos Aires for about a month. President Joe Biden calls the decision by OPEC to cut oil production a disappointment, but says the White House is exploring alternatives.
The trip was not essentially for oil. The trip was about the Middle East and about Israel and rationalization of positions. But it is a disappointment, and it says that there are problems.
Leaders of 44 European countries stretching from Iceland all the way to Turkey met in what many said was a united stand against Russia's war in Ukraine, as an energy crisis and high inflation fueled by the conflict wreak havoc on their economies. It was the first time that Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan met Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan since they agreed to press ahead with efforts to establish diplomatic ties and continue normalization efforts. Police in Argentina have announced that almost half a ton of pure cocaine brought by land from Peru and protected by heavily armed men has been seized. Here are more details.
Police in Argentina announced that they have arrested 3 men from Peru and 3 from Paraguay with almost half a ton of pure cocaine brought by land from Peru protected by heavily armed men. Police say that the drug, after being cut, could supply the populous suburbs of Buenos Aires for about a month.
El resultado tiene que ver con una investigación que veníamos llevando adelante con una banda de peruanos fundamentalmente que ingresaban la droga en Argentina.
Sergio Berni, the security minister for Buenos Aires province, said that the bust is related to a very sophisticated drug cartel from Peru. Argentine prosecutor Santiago Marquivech is exchanging information with authorities from that country to aid the investigation.
Esto está relacionado con un cartel peruano, un cartel muy sofisticado en cuanto a su funcionamiento en Perú, y por eso el fiscal Marquivech está.
Argentina has been experiencing an increase in drug dealing activity, mostly in Rosario, Argentina's third largest city in the province of Santa Fe. In February, adulterated cocaine killed 20 people and seriously sickened 74 others in Buenos Aires. Agency report for Republic TV.
And coming up here on World This Morning, more news. Mass shooting reported in Thailand daycare center. The death toll has now risen to 36 in the horrific incident.
Direction, we broke into a dialogue with the Secretary General, managed to convince them that this being the 75th year of our independence, it is in the fitness of things that we host this event, and that is how it was unanimously accepted.
IC-814, the flight that was hijacked, and then of course the famous match fixing, and then of course Bofors. We were able to get first the Switzerland's cooperation, then the Malaysian government's cooperation. So all this would not have been possible without our seeking the assistance of the Interpol.
The assets which are stashed away, which are taken away as dirty money, and they are stashed away, and for the recovery of that, there is an initiative which India, CBI and Interpol has been jointly taking against organized crime, particularly the one which has been funding terrorism.
It's my cry, it's my feeling that SC/ST, when they are represented to have position, they become dumb and deaf.
जिस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग उन्होंने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति आदरणीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के लिए किया है, वो चिंताजनक और दुखद है, अशोभनीय है।
One of your leaders has abused the president. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, one of your leaders has abused the president. He's called her deaf and dumb. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, would you choose to react? Mr. Rahul.
Multilateral and bilateral. In both the cases, General Assembly is going to be a big boost to Indian law enforcement as well as to the Indian image of having come a long way in the last 75 years.
General Assembly, a lot of discussions are going to take place, and a fruitful engagement would be there between India and Interpol. There would be bilaterals, there will be multilaterals.
This session in Delhi will be a landmark session. There could be a rethinking on the part of many of the countries which refuse to go an extra mile to help member nations.
How did that woman who blew herself up and killed those Chinese in Karachi, she belonged to an educated family. Who told the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan terrorists that it was okay to kill soldiers or kill innocent people in the market? Pakistan thought that they would rear and breed these snakes, and these snakes would bite only their neighbors. And this entire thing about secularization of jihad is just another Pakistani ploy. Pakistan does not want the responsibility, but it wants to keep funding jihad.
Direction, we broke into a dialogue with the Secretary General, managed to convince them that this being the 75th year of our independence, it is in the fitness of things that we host this event, and that is how it was unanimously accepted.
IC-814, the flight that was hijacked, and then of course the famous match fixing, and then of course Bofors.
One of your leaders has abused the president. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, one of your leaders has abused the president. He's called her deaf and dumb. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, would you choose to react? Mr. Rahul.
In other international news, more than 12,000 buildings in the whole Mykolaiv region have been damaged or destroyed. It has been regularly targeted by cluster bombs as well as by low-precision rockets, which cause large-scale destruction when they land on residential buildings.
Residents of war-battered Mykolaiv struggle to live within the rubble of their homes. Essential services such as water were cut off since the southern Ukrainian city was heavily shelled last spring.
А то, что жить негде и нельзя, все выбираются, потому что разрушение.
А что, нету электричества сейчас получается?
Нету ни электричества, ни газа, ни воды, ничего нет. Канализация, ничего. Ни канализация, да.
И не будет, получается?
Не будет. Нас выселяют, из-за этого выселяют. Всю мебель вывозим, все.
А куда выселяют?
Даже цветочки. Кто куда? Предлагают койку-место. Где-то там жить или... Интернат.
Mykolaiv's water supply comes from Kherson, which is currently under Russian control. Several blocks away, people queue at one of the few distribution points for drinking water.
Я считаю, это ситуация катастрофическая, потому что даже сейчас вот смотреть на стариков без слез нельзя. А что будет зимой, вот похолодает, даже легкий минус, я не знаю. Мне кажется, это больше пахнет уже катастрофой экологической какой-то, техногенной. Я не знаю, как это можно назвать.
Residents reported recent strikes that reduced entire floors of residential buildings to rubble.
Прилетела ракета, как говорят, СС-300, такая. Вот я живу, не я живу, родные жили на 4-м этаже. Вот, а там видно сверху, что 5-го этажа нет. Полностью наш 4-й. Там, ну, я бы не сказал, что он относительно цел, но там жить не вариант. Там во всех углах очень большие щели и так далее. Стенки очень сильно подходили и все. Вот так вот.
Elsewhere in Ukraine, several Russian rockets hit residential buildings in the southern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia before dawn. The governor of the Russian-occupied region said that one person was killed and at least 5 people were trapped. The strikes came just hours after Ukraine's president announced that the country's military had retaken 3 more villages in one of the regions illegally annexed by Russia, the latest battlefield reversal for Moscow. Agency report for Republic TV.
Ukrainian emergency services showed rescuers scrambling through rubble in the wreckage of a devastated residential building reportedly caused by Russian rocket attack in the southern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia. Take a look.
7 Russian rockets slammed into residential buildings in the southern Ukrainian city of Zaporizhia before dawn. The governor of the mostly Russian-occupied region said that the attack killed 1 person and injured at least 5 in the city, which is close to Europe's biggest nuclear power plant. The governor said that many people were rescued from the multi-story building, including a 3-year-old who was taken to hospital for treatment.
Ночью, коли усі люди спали, ворог наніс ракетний удар по житлових будинках. Влучено 2 багатоповерхівки, зруйновані під'їзди. Люди під завалами, зразу виїхали рятувальні служби. Медики наші всі працюють для того, щоб достати всіх людей з-під завалів і мінімізувати втрати. Ворог тероризує мирне населення.
The strikes came just hours after Ukrainian president announced that the country's military had retaken 3 more villages in one of the regions Russia has said that it has annexed. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the European Political Community Summit attended by 44 countries.
Росія хоче перемалювати кордони, щоб знову розділити світ на зони впливу, знищивши наш спільний простір співпраці і розвитку. Росія корумпує мільярдами, які заробляє на торгівлі енергоресурсів. Це російська формула війни – вбивати, залякувати, фіксувати загрози вільним державам і їхні втрати, руйнувати кордони і корумпувати.
Zelensky also said that Russia has repeatedly used Iranian drones in recent strikes against Ukraine.
Росія робить Організацію Об'єднаних Націй зібранням 192, хто просто змушений терпіти, поки одна держава бреше й глумиться. І коли хоче цього, застосовує право вето, щоб заблокувати реальну можливість ООН повертати мир.
Regional authorities reported another rocket attack later in the morning, but there were no immediate details of the casualties or what was struck. Zaporizhia is one of the 4 regions that Russian President Vladimir Putin annexed in the violation of international laws and is home to a nuclear plant that is under Russian occupation. The city of the same name remains under Ukrainian control. Agency report, Republic TV.
Multilateral and bilateral. In both the cases, General Assembly is going to be a big boost to Indian law enforcement as well as to the Indian image of having come a long way in the last 75 years.
General Assembly, a lot of discussions are going to take place and a fruitful engagement would be there between India and Interpol. There would be bilaterals, there will be multilaterals.
This session in Delhi will be a landmark session. There could be a rethinking on the part of many of the countries which refuse to go an extra mile to help member nations.
How did that woman who blew herself up and killed those Chinese in Karachi, she belonged to an educated family. Who told the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan terrorists that it was okay to kill soldiers or kill innocent people in the market? Pakistan thought that they would rear and breed these snakes, and these snakes would bite only their neighbors. And this entire thing about secularization of jihad is just another Pakistani ploy. Pakistan does not want the responsibility, but it wants to keep funding jihad.
Direction, we broke into a dialogue with the Secretary General, managed to convince them that this being the 75th year of our independence, it is in the fitness of things that we host this event, and that is how it was unanimously accepted.
IC-814, the flight that was hijacked, and then of course the famous match fixing, and then of course Bofors. We were able to get first the Switzerland's cooperation, then the Malaysian government's cooperation. So all this would not have been possible without our seeking the assistance of the Interpol.
The assets which are stashed away, which are taken away as dirty money, and they are stashed away, and for the recovery of that, there is an initiative which India, CBI and Interpol has been jointly taking against organized crime, particularly the one which has been funding terrorism.
It's my cry, it's my feeling that SC/ST, when they are represented to high position, they become dumb and deaf.
जिस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग उन्होंने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति आदरणीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के लिए किया है, वो चिंताजनक और दुखद है, अशोभनीय है।
One of your leaders has abused the president. Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul, one of your leaders has abused the president. He's called her deaf and dumb. Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul, would you choose to react? Mr. Rahul!
Multilateral and bilateral. In both the cases, General Assembly is going to be a big boost to Indian law enforcement as well as to the Indian image of having come a long.
Good morning and welcome. You're watching the Morning Express on Republic TV. I'm Nupur Talwar Suri and this is Republic. We're going to begin with the headlines. Will carbon dating of shivling in the Gyanvapi mosque be allowed? The verdict is to be announced today. In the Gujarat stone pelting case, an eyewitness of the Khera violence claims the Congress leader led the mob. KPCC Chief T.K. Shivakumar is summoned for a second round by the ED in the National Herald case. Amit Shah, JP Nadda to be in Assam from today will inaugurate the biggest BJP office in the northeast. India at the UNSC says the ISIL, the Al-Qaeda linked groups in Africa, are attempting to control the political agenda. Well, in fact, as the mega crackdown on terror in Jammu and Kashmir continues, we are now learning that a hybrid terrorist was arrested by security forces in the Hefpuri area of Shopian during a joint operation. Now, one pistol and other ammunition has been recovered from him. So this is an arrest that's just been made a short while ago. This is a hybrid terrorist who was arrested from Shopian. This is, of course, in the backdrop of a mega swoop down that we have seen on terrorist activity across the valley. Shopian, of course, has in the past few weeks seen a lot of operations being launched by the Jammu and Kashmir police as well, in coordination with other agencies. Now, this particular terrorist, we're given to understand, was arrested from Shopian at Naka 1, and one pistol and ammunition has been recovered from him. Pictures on your screen are of the arrested person. We're still trying to ascertain which outfit he belonged to, and I think we've got Gursimran live from Jammu to tell us more on this. Gursimran, good morning. Give us more details about this particular operation as well as the terrorist who has been apprehended.
See, this operation was jointly conducted by the Jammu and Kashmir Police along with the 44 Rashtriya Rifles of the Indian Army and the CRPF in the Hef area. This falls in the Shopian, the South Kashmir. And important to mention that the arrested terrorist has been identified as Yawar Ahmed Padar, who hails from the Hef area, Zainpura area especially. And so forces have recovered a pistol, a magazine, 12 rounds and other ammunitions from his possession. He was a hybrid terrorist and possibly an attempt of carrying out the targeted killings in the South Kashmir. Shopian has been averted. The Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorist was in touch with the top terrorists who were active in the area and was working on their directions. The arrest has been made and now the interrogation is underway so as to find out the location of the terrorists who were guiding him and the route through which he was getting the supply of arms and ammunition which has been recovered from his possession.
All right, Gursimran bringing us those details. Thank you very much for joining us. As Gursimran was pointing out, this was a joint operation which was conducted in Shopian. Now, in an exclusive report on the Khera violence, where a mob belonging to a particular community allegedly pelted stones at people attending the Garba event, an eyewitness of the violence has claimed that a local Congress leader, Arif Sheikh, who fought an election on the ticket from the party in 2021, was one of the stone pelters. Here's more.
1 month before the elections in Gujarat are all set to take place, violence broke out in Khera. On the face of it, it seemed as though there was violence that broke out between two communities, and that's why I reached on the ground to investigate.
एक आरिफ करके और जहीर करके लड़का है, वो दोनों ने उसकी अगुवाई में एक टोला लेके आए थे और जो भी व्यक्ति थे सब ने फिर डिस्टर्बेंस स्टार्ट कर दिया। और जो गांव के लीडर्स है उन लोगों ने उनको समझाने की भी ट्राई की, लेकिन वो लोग माने नहीं और उनके साथ झगड़ा करने लगे और फिर थोड़े दूर जाके पत्थर मारा स्टार्ट किया।
We're right now here in the Undhela village of Kheda, and let us show you the kind of police that deployment that has been done to make sure that there's no further untoward incident and law and order situation that is also created here on the ground. And what you also see is this is the exact spot where the Garba celebrations had been going on in the night, and that's when there were several people, miscreants in fact, who had started stone pelting on the Garba procession.
वहाँ से भाग के आ रहे थे तो वहाँ उसकी गली है, वहाँ हमने रोक डाला। हम लकड़ियाँ लेकर वो सब आ गए थे तो हमको घेर लिया सबने, और वहाँ से हमारे लोग आए, हमने छुड़ा के लिए हम सब यहाँ खड़े थे तो वहाँ से एक पत्थर फेंका, उसका लग गया।
As we heard, one of the eyewitnesses who's already given his statement to the police, in fact claiming that he had spotted these people, in fact of certain political parties, especially the Congress party as well, as far as Arif Sheikh is concerned, and he was the one who was leading a mob of at least 100 to 150 people as well.
Eyewitnesses claimed it was all planned.
वो आरिफ से क्या है 2021 में इलेक्शन लड़े थे कांग्रेस तरफ से, और भाजपा का हमारा जो शैलेश है वो जीत गए। जब भी तंग वातावरण हो गया था लेकिन ठंडा पड़ दिया, और उन्होंने बहुत पहले से जो यंग जनरेशन है उनको भड़काने में उसका पहला हाथ रहता है।
मेंबर्स तो सारे लोग थे, लेकिन साजिश में ऐसा है कि ये जो मेंटल है पत्थर वो दिखाया जाता है, वो बड़े रोड खाते का है, ऐसा हमारे गांव में कहीं यूज़ नहीं हुआ है। तो ये पहले की साजिश है कि सभी लकड़ियाँ और पत्थर।
Those injured claim clear political instruction.
आपकी जो सभी लोग मोमेडियन लोग खड़े हैं उसको ले जाओ और इधर से साइड में कर दो, ये सब गरबे खेलने दो। तो उन्होंने कुछ बोला नहीं और सब खड़े रहे और कुछ बोला नहीं। बाद में सबने पत्थरमारी शुरू नहीं कर दी, पर उन्होंने ही उसको प्रोवाइड किया कि आप शुरू कर दो पत्थर मारने के लिए।
All of these women as well claiming that they saw these members of the panchayat of the Congress party, of several other parties as well, and they had also instigated these crowds. In fact, the police also investigating the fact that there was a Congress member who had been leading a mob of at least 100 to 150 people, and this has been reiterated by eyewitnesses as well.
The Sarpanch of Undhela village revealed it was not just one Congress leader.
ये मुस्लिम पार्टी है सब, हाँ कांग्रेस ही। अब हम उसने बोला कि ऐसा तुम सभ्य होके नहीं करना चाहिए, तो हम इसमें बोला सभ्य तो हम है, पर इसी वक्त सभ्य पे कुछ नहीं होता है।
The kind of desolate character of this courtyard is visible, with the shops being closed, with an aftermath of the violence that had broken out. And we do see that a political color also now emerging in this entire investigation, with the sarpanches and also eyewitnesses claiming that they were Congress leaders, Congress members on the ground.
150 से 200 लोगों का एक मॉब था, उस मॉब ने ये असॉल्ट किया था जिसमें महिलाएं और पुरुष शामिल थे। अभी तक पूछताछ चालू है और करीब 10 से 11 आरोपियों को हम लोगों ने पूछताछ के लिए हिरासत में लिया है।
Parallelly, a separate inquiry and report is being submitted on the flogging incident in the region. The selective silence of the Vadra Congress on the allegedly political affiliation of accused number 1 and others is curious. The incidents of violence cannot be played down as spontaneous antisocial acts anymore. As Republic follows up on the incident, the question remains, was it all timed to elections?
Now, after banning the PFI and its affiliates in the country, the operation against dismantling its offices and other training centers has now begun.
After banning PFI and its affiliates in the country, the operation against the office and other training centers has now started. In exclusive input that Republic has got, we learned that all PFI workers from across Karnataka were trained in Mitturu in Bantwala Taluk of Dakshina Kannada district. The district police have moved to seize Freedom Community Hall, which was running a training center. This center hired retired police officers to give weapon trainings to PFI cadres. The NIA investigation revealed that those involved in the riots of KJ Halli and DJ Halli that took place in many places including the village were trained in this center. Not just this, Shihabuddin, the main accused in the murder of BJP youth leader Praveen Nettaru murder case, was continuously trained in this center. Out of the three main masterminds of terror training in Karnataka, Mohammad Ashraf and Ayub Agnadi has been arrested, whereas Masood Agnadi is on the run. Bureau Report, Republic TV.
Now, with India all set to host the 90th Interpol General Assembly in Delhi starting the 18th of October, the Intergovernmental Organization Secretary General Jurgen spoke to Republic Media Network on Thursday. Here's more.
The International Criminal Police Organization, generally known as the Interpol, is an intergovernmental organization which consists of 195 countries. The major role is that to help the police to work together to make the world a safer place. To do this, the organization enables them to share and access data on crimes and criminals and offer a range of technical and operational support. Now the question is, who makes the Interpol? Well, the General Secretariat coordinates day-to-day activities to fight a range of crimes. Run by the Secretary General, it is staffed by both police and civilians and comprises a headquarters in Singapore and several satellite offices in different regions. The General Assembly is the governing body and it brings all countries together once a year to take some major decisions. Now these decisions are on policy, resources and finances of the organization that needs to be managed. The General Secretariat provides a range of expertise and services to member countries. Interpol manages 19 police databases with information on crimes and criminals ranging from names and fingerprints to stolen passports, which is accessible in real time to countries. Now, India will be hosting the 90th Interpol General Assembly in the national capital from 18th to 21st of October.
Out of turn one that India will be hosting. Now, India, of course, has been given a chance to host this event as we are celebrating the 76th year of our independence. The key focus of this event is going to be several issues that relate to security. One of them, of course, is going to be cybercrime, financial crimes, and also child pornography that is peddled on the internet.
The agenda for this meet will be on the future of policing today's crime like anti-corruption, cybercrime, crimes against children and others. Not just this, executive committee elections will also be held this time. Some of the successful operations that the CBI carried out with the Interpol is Operation Meghdut, Operation Chakra and Operation Guard. India has also been one of the relatively more active members and all eyes will be on key decisions that will be made during the meeting. Bureau Report, Republic TV.
Now, in that all-exclusive conversation, Stork broached numerous topics, including how the Interpol facilitates data sharing between police services of over 100 nations, how it enables nations' police forces to work together even if they don't have formal diplomatic ties, how the agency keeps up with the evolving nature of crime, and more.
Ahead of the Interpol General Assembly, Interpol Secretary General Jurgen has spoken for the first time on Indian television. With over 40 years of policing experience, Mr. Stock has played a pivotal role in establishing 3 global programs to guide all Interpol's policing activities, starting from counter-terrorism to cybercrime. Thank you very much, Mr. Stock, for speaking to Republic TV. Let me straight away dive in by asking you, Interpol is moving into the centenary next year. How much has Interpol achieved since its creation nearly 100 years ago?
So, where to begin? Interpol provides a unique global platform for law enforcement cooperation across our 195 member countries. Our 19 global databases put 126 million records at the fingertips of police around the world. These databases are searched more than 20 million times each day, which equates to around 250 searches per second. We have assisted our member countries locate and arrest tens of thousands of fugitives and helped identify thousands of child abuse victims. And importantly, since crimes evolve, we keep an eye on the future through research and development in international crime and trends. As we move into our centenary next year, I'm sure that we will continue to see even greater achievements with the support of our membership.
Well, a lot is spoken about the challenges faced by Interpol. Many a times there is perception about Interpol which perhaps may not be true. Many do not even understand the true functioning of Interpol. How does it really operate and what are the challenges? Hence, I'm asking you this question as to how do you essentially plan to tackle the challenges arising out of lack of diplomatic relations between its members?
Interpol enables police to work directly with their counterparts, even and especially between countries which do not have diplomatic relations, ensuring that Interpol's activities remain in line with our key principles of neutrality and independence is fundamental. And as Secretary General, these are elements I am committed to upholding, as without which international police cooperation could simply not continue. Every police officer in the world knows that in our line of work, you never know who holds the next piece of information you need to save the next life or prevent a terrorist attack. Similarly, any criminal cartel or terrorist network will exploit any gaps in police cooperation, so we cannot afford to have kind of black holes. It is precisely our effort in supporting international police cooperation, especially where diplomatic relations do not exist, which makes Interpol a vital part of global security.
Well, this brings me to the other question that there has always been an area of concern for the Interpol. Crime of terrorism is outside Interpol's constitutional scope. So how does one bridge the gap in order to improve the scope of functioning?
In fact, terrorism is one of our three main crime programs, the other two being cybercrime and organized and emerging crime. Terrorism encompasses a range of complex threats, so Interpol's focus remains on three key areas: identifying suspects, preventing terrorist travel, and tracing their finances. This is another reason why our neutrality is essential and why Interpol's role in combating terrorism is enshrined in numerous United Nations Security Council resolutions. Interpol was the first international organization to develop and implement a military-to-police information exchange model, putting information from conflict zones into the hands of law enforcement officers. We help countries share biometric data on foreign terrorist fighters and other terrorist suspects, as well as conduct checks against our facial recognition system and DNA and fingerprint databases. Our stolen and lost travel documents database helps countries identify individuals attempting to travel on a fake passport, for example. And in terms of terrorist financing, we work with a number of bodies such as the Financial Action Task Force, the Egmont Group, and financial intelligence units to help drive high-level policies and cooperation to counter terrorist financing.
With every passing day, the nature of the crime across the globe is changing, sometimes very rapidly. What does future policing look like in the wake of new challenges?
Today, we are witnessing unprecedented complexity in our criminal threat landscape, added to which COVID-19 triggered unprecedented opportunistic and predatory criminal behavior. Cybercrime stands, without a doubt, as one of the most challenging and fastest growing criminal threats faced by the international community. The threat is severe, far-reaching, and by definition, borderless. There are gaps in law enforcement cyber capacity across regions. Investigating cybercrime requires specific skills and technology which many countries do not possess. Again, this is where Interpol provides assistance and equally as important, training. By increasing the capacity of our member countries to prevent, detect, investigate, and disrupt cybercrimes, we can help protect communities.
Well, coming to Interpol's relation with India. In fact, India has been grappling with growing number of economic fugitives. How do you think Interpol can perhaps improve its working with India to help counter this?
Our cooperation with India is already extremely strong. What is important to remember, especially with fugitive investigations, is these individuals are actively trying to avoid arrest. This often means fugitives deliberately travel to countries which have no extradition treaty with India or use their illicit gains to hide. In fact, depriving criminals of their ill-gotten gains is a key area for action, especially as less than 1% of global illicit financial flows are intercepted and recovered, which of course inversely means that nearly 99% of stolen assets remain in criminal hands. The tracing, seizure and confiscation of criminal assets should be a priority for all countries, and Interpol stands ready to provide any and all assistance.
In fact, India has played an active role in Interpol. How do you see the contribution that India has made to Interpol, keeping in mind in the last few months we've seen several big operations that were carried out here in India with the help of Interpol?
India is one of our most active and engaged member countries. Through the Central Bureau of Investigation, we see extremely high levels of cooperation in combating all crime types. A recent example is the successful Operation Garuda, which resulted in the seizure of large amounts of drugs and a significant number of arrests. What is equally as important, these operations identify further links between organized crime groups, which will no doubt result in more arrests and seizures in the future. And I was delighted when earlier this year India became the 68th country to connect to our international child sexual exploitation database. This is another demonstration of India's strong commitment to global law enforcement cooperation and their efforts to protect the most vulnerable members of society. These are just two examples of the kind of leadership in law enforcement shown by India and why New Delhi is the ideal location to bring together police chiefs from around the world for our Interpol General Assembly.
There were back-to-back attacks on President Draupadi Murmu by the Congress leader Udit Raj, who remained obstinate as Republic TV confronted him. After first insulting the president by calling her a chamcha, he escalated the attack and then called her deaf and dumb.
तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी में गूंगा और बहरा दलित हो तो किसी भी पोजीशन पर पहुंच सकता है। पहले राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष बनाया था और अब एक राष्ट्रपति बना दिया है।
After the unrelenting attacks on President Draupadi Murmu, the BJP has demanded that the Congress expel Udit Raj immediately. The Saffron Party sought an apology from the Congress, but there's none forthcoming, not even from the leadership.
कांग्रेस पार्टी एक आदिवासी, एक महिला और जिन्होंने संघर्ष करके देश के सर्वोच्च पद तक पहुंचा है, उनके खिलाफ इस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग बार बार कर रही है। ये कहीं न कहीं कांग्रेस पार्टी की मानसिकता को दर्शाता है। ये कहीं न कहीं कांग्रेस पार्टी के एंटी ट्राइबल माइंडसेट को उजागर करता है। आज कांग्रेस पार्टी को इस प्रकार के वक्तव्य के लिए क्षमा मांगनी चाहिए।
The BJP's top brass, including the National President JP Nadda and the Union Home Minister Amit Shah, will be on a two-day visit to Assam and will inaugurate the biggest office of the party in the northeast region. Nadda and Shah will also attend party workers' meeting at the Wet College Playground in Khanpara in Guwahati. Maharashtra's Chief Minister Eknath Shinde has written to the Election Commission of India staking claim to the Shiva Sena's party symbol. Republic has accessed the affidavit, and Shinde has also accused Uddhav Thackeray's faction of misusing the symbol. Former Maharashtra Home Minister Anil Deshmukh moved a bail application before the special CBI court in connection with a money laundering case registered by the agency. The court has directed the CBI to file its reply by the 14th of October. You are watching Republic TV, and still to come, will carbon dating of the Shivling in Gyanvapi Mosque be allowed? Verdict to be announced today. The KPCC chief DK Shivakumar is summoned for a second round by the ED in the National Herald case.
Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. The Vadra Congress has launched yet another organized attack on President Draupadi Murmu. And it cannot be accidental. They have called her all sorts of names. And they have assigned their senior Congress leader Udit Raj for this hatchet job. Viewers, earlier the same Congress leader was assigned to personally attack President Ramnath Kovind. So there is a pattern. The Vadra Congress, viewers, has constantly targeted President Murmu. With Sonia Gandhi, I don't know what problem she has with President Draupadi Murmu, earlier personally assigning her man in parliament, Adhir Ranjan, to attack President Draupadi Murmu and describe the president as Rashtrapatni. Viewers, the Vadra family's effective sponsorship of these attacks on President Murmu is clear from the fact that all those who have senselessly attacked President Draupadi Murmu have only been promoted in the party and not faced any action at all. So then what is the Vadra's problem with President Murmu? Are they happier with people they put on the president's chair who say they are so grateful that they would sweep the floor for members of the Vadra Gandhi family? Or is it the fact that President Kovind and President Murmu are from the SC/ST community and have risen to the highest job with sheer service to the country and merit? Whatever the reason, only a contorted mind would attack the President of India in the way the Congress has. And that, tonight, we debate.
It's my cry, it's my feeling that SC/ST, when they are represented to higher position, they become dumb and deaf.
जिस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग उन्होंने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति आदरणीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के लिए किया है, वो चिंताजनक और दुखद है, अशोभनीय है।
One of your leaders has abused the president. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, one of your leaders has abused the president. He's called her deaf and dumb. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, would you choose to react? Mr. Rahul.
Multilateral and bilateral. In both the cases, General Assembly is going to be a big boost to Indian law enforcement as well as to the Indian image of having come a long way in the last 75 years.
General Assembly, a lot of discussions are going to take place and a fruitful engagement would be there between India and Interpol. There would be bilaterals, there will be multilaterals.
This session in Delhi will be a landmark session. There could be a rethinking on the part of many of the countries which refuse to go an extra mile to help member nations.
Direction, we broke into a dialogue with the Secretary General, managed to convince them that this being the 75th year of our independence, it is in the fitness of things that we host this event, and that is how it was unanimously accepted.
IC-814, the flight that was hijacked, and then of course the famous match fixing, and then of course Bofors. We were able to get first the Switzerland's cooperation, then the Malaysian government's cooperation. So all this would not have been possible without our going seeking the assistance of the Interpol.
The assets which are stashed away, which are taken away as dirty money, and they are stashed away, and for the recovery of that, there is an initiative which India, CBI and Interpol has been jointly taking against organized crime, particularly the one which has been funding terrorism.
Will carbon dating of Shivling in Gyanvapi Mosque be allowed? Verdict to be announced today. In the Gujarat stone pelting case, an eyewitness of the Kheda violence claims Congress leader led the mob. DK Shiv Kumar summoned for second round by ED in National Herald case. Amit Shah and JP Nadda to be on Assam visit from today will inaugurate the biggest BJP office in the northeast.
ISIL and Al-Qaeda linked and inspired groups in Africa are embedding themselves in multiple domestic conflicts, attempt to influence and control the political agenda.
India at UN Security Council says ISIL, Al-Qaeda linked groups in Africa are attempting to control political agenda. This is a self-defeating goal. Hello and welcome to this edition of the Morning Express. I'm Rukma. And in our top story, we bring you breaking news right at the beginning of the bulletin, and in which we tell you about how certain persons taking part in a Dashera procession entered the historical Mahmud Gawa Madrasa in Karnataka. This is news coming in from Vidar in Karnataka. They performed puja in the premises of the madrasa and raised slogans of Jai Shri Ram. An FIR has been registered against 9 people in this respect. 4 people have been taken into custody. So 4 people taken into custody, and Prajwal to take us through the latest updates and the details in this regard. Prajwal, what are you hearing from your sources? When does this incident happen, and what is the latest update you can give us?
Good morning, Rukma. And this particular incident has come to light from the Bidar town. And this incident was reported on the 6th of October at 2 in the morning. And FIR has been registered against 9 people. Prominent among them is the name of Prashant Gauli, who is also a prominent leader there. Now, the mob over here in question had taken out Dasra procession route march. And while passing in front of the madrasa in the wee hours of the morning, they have threatened the security guard and forced open the gates of the madrasa. And remember that in Bidar, both the Muslim brethren and the Hindu community celebrate Ganesha as well as Dasera together. And in this particular case, what happened was usually the committee of the mosque used to perform pujas either to the Ganesha rally or else even for the Dasera rally. But over here, this particular mob violated this agreement between the two communities, and they threatened the security. They forced open the gate, and they also forced open the door of the madrasa, and then they performed pujas inside the madrasa too and started chanting slogans of Jai Shri Ram, Vande Mataram and Bharat Mata Ki Jai too. And in this regard, the situation was very tense too, because the police immediately arrived at the spot. The SP himself was also present over there, and they made sure that the situation wouldn't go out of control, because there were around 400 to 500 people who gathered at a very short span of time. And now the members from the Muslim community have stated that they will protest if serious action is not taken, because so far only 4 people have been detained, and we are still we are still yet to know the information whether these 4 people's names have been mentioned in the FIR, because all the locals there are alleging the fact that none of them have.
साल 8 अक्टूबर
So tri-service chiefs paying their respects at the National War Memorial and saluting in homage to our martyrs. Brave hearts, our battle casualties over the years in various battles, winning laurels for India, for the nation. The chiefs of the Army, Navy and Air Force and Chief of Defence Staff as well at the National War Memorial in New Delhi, paying tribute in a wreath-laying ceremony at the National War Memorial in tribute to our fallen heroes, to the brave men who gave their lives for the nation. We get you more news now. Breaking news, in fact, coming in. And we are getting news about from Madhya Pradesh's Vidisha, where allegedly a mazar has been built inside school premises. Allegedly, the principal ordered the construction of the mazar inside the premises of this particular school in Madhya Pradesh's Vidisha. So authorities in this particular school have been found to have instructed. It has been reported that authorities in the school instructed that a mazar be built inside the school premises. More details on this story are awaited. But this is a story, this is a report coming in from Madhya Pradesh's Vidisha. These are visuals of the school where the alleged mazar was built under the principal's orders. It's a shocker coming in from Madhya Pradesh's Vidisha.
प्रार्थना मध्य प्रदेश गान और ए मालिक तेरे बंदे हम। और राष्ट्रगान कभी कभी कुछ मौक़ों पर होता था, 15 अगस्त 26 जनवरी इन मौक़ों पर होता है। और राष्ट्रगीत भी नहीं हुआ।
राष्ट्रगान भी होता है नियमित रूप से।
अच्छा, और एक मामला और आया है यहाँ कि यहाँ कोई मज़ार का मामला है कि मज़ार कोई नई बनी है यहाँ?
नहीं सर, नहीं बनी थी। पुरानी जो बनी थी ना, तो उसी की रिपेयरिंग करके नई हो गई। आपको
अभी यहाँ कोई नई मज़ार बनी है?
नई बनी है।
अच्छा, कैसे बनाई है?
पुरानी भी नई, पुरानी उससे नहीं करवाई है।
अच्छा, पुरानी मज़ार को नया कराया है।
And Satya Prakash to tell us more about this incident. Satya Prakash, we're hearing about a mazar inside school premises, and from what we hear, ye mazar was always there. It's been repaired and given a new face now. What are you hearing from your sources? What can you tell us about this story in detail?
जी देखिए, मध्य प्रदेश के विदिशा जिले में कुरवाई इलाका है जहां पर कि शासकीय स्कूल है, सीएम राइज स्कूल है, जिसमें एक मजार नुमा चबूतरा बना दिया गया और इसको लेकर पूरा विवाद खड़ा हुआ है। चूंकि फरवरी माह में ये चबूतरा रिपेयर करके बनाया गया, इसकी जानकारी लगी है और उस समय की प्रभारी प्राचार्य जो हैं वो वर्ग विशेष से आती हैं, उन्होंने इस चबूतरे को रिपेयर करवाया और इसे मजारनुमा रूप दिया, जिसके बाद विवाद खड़ा हुआ। और विवाद के बाद जब पूरा जो घटनाक्रम में लोगों ने शिकायत की, वहां के छात्रों ने शिकायत की, वहां के स्थानीय नागरिकों ने शिकायत की, जिसके बाद शिक्षा विभाग ने जांच की और जांच में ये पाया कि हाँ, वहां पर जो चबूतरा है वो उसे मजार की शक्ल दी गई। और उस समय की फरवरी में जब ये बनाया गया, उस समय की तत्कालीन जो प्रभारी प्राचार्य हैं साइना फिरदौस, उन्होंने ये चबूतरा जो है इसे मजार का रूप देने की कोशिश की, मजार जैसा बना दिया है, जिसके बाद ये विवाद खड़ा हुआ। कल राष्ट्रीय बाल संरक्षण आयोग के जो अध्यक्ष हैं वो भी वहां पर इन शिकायतों के बाद सर्वे और जांच करने पहुंचे थे। उन्होंने भी इस पर आपत्ति दर्ज कराई है। और अभी लेटेस्ट अपडेट ये है कि जब इस पर विवाद खड़ा हो रहा है तो इसके बाद पहले तो सिर्फ प्रभारी प्राचार्य को तबादला ट्रांसफर उनका किया था, लेकिन अभी हमारे पास जानकारी है कि उनको निलंबित सस्पेंड कर दिया गया है। और दूसरी बड़ी बात यह है कि विदिशा जिला जो है सीएम वहां से काफी टच में रहे हैं। सीएम सीधे कनेक्ट रखते हैं विदिशा जिले से और विदिशा के कुरवाई में ये घटना हुई है। कुरवाई का जो शासकीय स्कूल है सीएम राइज स्कूल, इस स्कूल का भी नाम सीएम राइज स्कूल है, जहां पर कि इस विवादित चबूतरे का निर्माण किया गया। हालांकि वहां के प्यून और बाकी लोगों से जब हमारे सोर्स में बात की तो उनका कहना था कि पहले से यहाँ चबूतरा था, बस इसे रिपेयर किया गया है। लेकिन जांच जो हुई है शिक्षा विभाग द्वारा उसमें ये स्पष्ट है कि इसे मजार की शक्ल दी गई और जिसके बाद विवाद खड़ा हुआ। स्थानीय लोगों ने आपत्ति की, बच्चों ने भी आपत्ति की और इसी के चलते अब तत्कालीन जो प्रभारी प्राचार्य थी उन्हें निलंबित भी कर दिया गया है। अब देखना यह है कि चूंकि जिस तरह से अब लोग शिकायत कर रहे हैं और मजार स्कूल में मजार का कोई काम नहीं होता, वहां पर सभी वर्ग से जुड़े लोग पढ़ने आते हैं, तो ऐसे में इसको क्या तोड़ा जाएगा, ये अगला बड़ा सवाल खड़ा होता है।
Well, Satya Vijay, stay with us. We'll be coming back to you. Let's listen in to understand more about the entire case.
हमको शिकायत मिली थी कि विदिशा जिले की कुरवाई तहसील में सीएम राइज स्कूल में मजार नुमा संरचनाएं बनाई गई हैं और बच्चों को गुमराह करने का और रेडिकलाइजेशन का काम वहाँ पे किया जा रहा है और ये काम स्कूल के शिक्षकों द्वारा किया जा रहा है। हमने वहां जाके जांच की, हमको पता चला कि विद्यालय की एक पूर्व प्राचार्य और उसके पति द्वारा वहां पर फरवरी मार्च के महीने में इस प्रकार की संरचना का निर्माण किया गया। मई महीने में इसकी शिकायत भी जिला शिक्षा अधिकारी तक आ गई और 15 अगस्त को स्कूल के जो नए प्राचार्य आए उन्होंने एक जांच रिपोर्ट भी जिला शिक्षा अधिकारी को दे दी बना करके। उस रिपोर्ट में यह खुलासा हुआ कि वहां पे बच्चों को राष्ट्रगान केवल 15 अगस्त और 26 जनवरी को कराया जाता था, राष्ट्रीय गीत कभी नहीं कराया गया, जो कि मध्य प्रदेश शासन के नियम अनुसार होना चाहिए। इसके अलावा हमको अपनी जांच में जो पता चला वो यह था कि शुक्रवार के दिन बच्चों को नमाज पढ़ने के लिए छुट्टी दे दी जाती है। हमको ये भी पता चला कि पूर्व प्राचार्य जब वहां काम कर रही थी उसने एक कक्ष नमाज पढ़ने के लिए आरक्षित कर रखा था। हमको ये भी पता चला कि दिस इज नॉट लिमिटेड टू दैट सीएम राइज स्कूल। वहां पे 3 स्कूल हमने कुल विजिट की और हमको तीनों में मजारें देखने को मिली। स्कूल के अंदर इस प्रकार की संरचनाओं का निर्माण करना, बच्चों को जुम्मे के दिन नमाज पढ़ने की छुट्टी देना, ये सब एक गंभीर अनियमितता की ओर इशारा करती हैं। जिला शिक्षा अधिकारी आज पूरे समय नदारद रहा। हमको सहयोग उसने जांच के दौरान बिल्कुल भी नहीं किया। हमने सवेरे ही उनको सूचना की थी कि हम ये जांच करने के लिए आ रहे हैं। ना तो ब्लॉक एजुकेशन ऑफिसर को उन्होंने भेजा, ना ही जिला शिक्षा अधिकारी ने खुद वहां उपस्थित रहने की आवश्यकता समझी, ना ही तो हमको स्कूल से संबंधित पेपर्स दिखाए गए। ऐसी स्थिति में साफ साफ प्रतीत होता है कि 15 अगस्त से जानकारी होने के बावजूद जिला शिक्षा अधिकारी किसी दबाव में काम कर रहा है, जिसने सरकारी जमीन को खाली करवाने के लिए अभी तक कोई काम नहीं किया।
तो देखिए विदिशा के कुरवाई का ये जो पूरा घटनाक्रम था, इस पे हम डिटेल रिपोर्ट दिखा रहे हैं। सबसे बड़ी बात ये कि स्कूल में इस तरह की संरचनाओं का कोई काम नहीं होता, मजारनुमा संरचना का, इसीलिए विवाद खड़ा हुआ। और इसी स्टोरी पर बाकी अपडेट्स देंगे एक छोटे से ब्रेक के बाद।
Direction, we broke into a dialogue with the Secretary General, managed to convince them that this being the 75th year of our independence, it is in the fitness of things that we host this event, and that is how it was unanimously accepted.
IC-814, the flight that was hijacked, and then of course the famous match fixing, and then of course Bofors. We were able to get first the Switzerland's cooperation, then the Malaysian government's cooperation. So all this would not have been possible without our seeking the assistance of the Interpol.
The assets which are stashed away, which are taken away as dirty money, and they are stashed away, and for the recovery of that, there is an initiative which India, CBI and Interpol has been jointly taking against organized crime, particularly the one which has been funding terrorism.
It's my cry, it's my feeling that SC/ST, when they are represented to high position, they become dumb and deaf.
जिस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग उन्होंने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति आदरणीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के लिए किया है, वो चिंताजनक और दुखद है, अशोभनीय है।
of your leaders has abused the president. Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul, one of your leaders has abused the president. He's called her deaf and dumb. Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul, would you choose to react? Mr. Rahul!
Multilateral and bilateral. In both the cases, General Assembly is going to be a big boost to Indian law enforcement as well as to the Indian image of having come a long way in the last 75 years.
General Assembly, a lot of discussions are going to take place and a fruitful engagement would be there between India and Interpol. There would be bilaterals, there will be multilaterals.
This session in Delhi will be a landmark session. There could be a rethinking on the part of many of the countries which refuse to go an extra mile to help member nations.
How did that woman who blew herself up and killed those Chinese in Karachi, she belonged to an educated family. Who told the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan terrorists that it was okay to kill soldiers or kill innocent people in the market? Pakistan thought that they would rear and breed these snakes, and these snakes would bite only their neighbors. And this entire thing about secularization of jihad is just another Pakistani ploy. Pakistan does not want the responsibility, but it wants to keep funding jihad.
Direction, we broke into a dialogue with the Secretary General, managed to convince them that this being the 75th year of our independence, it is in the fitness of things that we host this event.
And in the Morning Express, time now for some sports news. Iran breezed to 5-0 win over Thailand in AFC Futsal Asian Cup semi-finals. With this victory, Iran is just a match away from winning the title in the record extending 13th time against Japan, who is the only other team to have won the coveted crown. Saski Baskonia makes winning start to new EuroLeague season with 81-71 success at Valencia Basket. The new coach John Penaroya led Baskonia, masterminding the victory against coach's former club Mike Kotsar on his premier match, emerged as the star performer. Al-Ettifaq held to a goalless draw by third place Al Hilal at Prince Mohammed bin Fahd Stadium in Saudi Roshan League. As a result of the tie, both teams remain in the same position in the points table. Real Madrid take the upper hand throughout their 71-68 win over host Panathinaikos in the EuroLeague opening match. Duo of Eddie Tavares and Zanan Musa helped Real Madrid clinch victory. Fenerbahce dominate EuroLeague season opener as they beat hosts Bayern Munich in a 74-62 win. And breaking news coming in now, the ED is conducting searches at multiple locations. News coming in of 35 locations so far. And that's as far as the news right now is concerned. But this is breaking news, viewers. The ED, the Enforcement Directorate, now conducting searches at 35 locations. And KPCC Chief D.K. Shivkumar has been summoned for a second round by the ED in the National Herald case. We bring you all the news and updates here in Republic, so stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We are just slipping into a very short break.
Multilateral and bilateral. In both the cases, General Assembly is going to be a big boost to Indian law enforcement as well as to the Indian image of having come a long way in the last 75 years.
General Assembly, a lot of discussions are going to take place and a fruitful engagement would be there between India and Interpol. There would be bilaterals, there will be multilaterals.
This session in Delhi will be a landmark session. There could be a rethinking on the part of many of the countries which refuse to go an extra mile to help member nations.
How did that woman who blew herself up and killed those Chinese in Karachi, she belonged to an educated family. Who told the Taliban Pakistan terrorists that it was okay to kill soldiers or kill innocent people in the market? Pakistan thought that they would rear and breed these snakes, and these snakes would bite only their neighbors. And this entire thing about secularization of jihad is just another Pakistani ploy. Pakistan does not want the responsibility, but it wants to keep funding jihad.
Direction, we broke into a dialogue with the Secretary General, managed to convince them that this being the 75th year of our independence, it is in the fitness of things that we host this event, and that is how it was unanimously accepted.
IC-814, the flight that was hijacked, and then of course the famous match fixing, and then of course Bofors. We were able to get first the Switzerland's cooperation, then the Malaysian government's cooperation. So all this would not have been possible without our seeking the assistance of the Interpol.
The assets which are stashed away, which are taken away as dirty money, and they are stashed away, and for the recovery of that, there is an initiative which India, CBI and Interpol has been jointly taking against organized crime, particularly the one which has been funding terrorism.
It's my cry, it's my feeling that SC/ST, when they are represented to higher position, they become dumb and deaf.
जिस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग उन्होंने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति आदरणीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के लिए किया है, वो चिंताजनक और दुखद है, अशोभनीय है।
One of your leaders has abused the president. Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul, one of your leaders has abused the president. He's called her deaf and dumb. Mr. Rahul! Mr. Rahul, would you choose to react? Mr. Rahul!
Multilateral and bilateral. In both the cases, General Assembly is going to be a big boost to Indian law enforcement as well as to the Indian image of having come a long way in the last 75 years.
General Assembly, a lot of discussions are going to take place and a fruitful engagement would be there between India and Interpol. There would be bilaterals, there will be multilaterals.
This session in Delhi will be a landmark session. There could be a rethinking on the part of many of the countries which...
And you're watching news here, breaking news coming in now. As we told you before going in for that short break, the ED conducting searches across 35 locations across states in Punjab, Delhi and Haryana. Sources have informed that the searches are linked to the Liquor Gate scam. In breaking news coming in, the ED conducting searches at 35 locations even as we speak. We bring you all the details as they're coming in here on Republic, so stay with us as we slip into a very short break.
It's my cry, it's my feeling that SC/ST, when they are represented to higher position, they become dumb and deaf.
जिस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग उन्होंने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति आदरणीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के लिए किया है, वो चिंताजनक और दुखद है, अशोभनीय है।
One of your leaders has abused the president. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, one of your leaders has abused the president. He's called her deaf and dumb. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, would you choose to react? Mr. Rahul.
Multilateral and bilateral. In both the cases, General Assembly is going to be a big boost to Indian law enforcement as well as to the Indian image of having come a long way in the last 75 years.
General Assembly, a lot of discussions are going to take place and a fruitful engagement would be there between India and Interpol. There would be bilaterals, there will be multilaterals.
This session in Delhi will be a landmark session. There could be a rethinking on the part of many of the countries which refuse to go an extra mile to help member nations.
How did that woman who blew herself up and killed those Chinese in Karachi, she belonged to an educated family. Who told the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan terrorists that it was okay to kill soldiers or kill innocent people in the market? Pakistan thought that they would rear and breed these snakes, and these snakes would bite only their neighbors. And this entire thing about secularization of jihad is just another Pakistani ploy. Pakistan does not want the responsibility, but it wants to keep funding jihad.
Direction, we broke into a dialogue with the Secretary General, managed to convince them that this being the 75th year of our independence, it is in the fitness of things that we host this event, and that is how it was unanimously accepted.
IC-814, the flight that was hijacked, and then of course the famous match fixing, and then of course Bofors. We were able to get first the Switzerland's cooperation, then the Malaysian government's cooperation. So all this would not have been possible without our seeking the assistance of the Interpol.
The assets which are stashed away, which are taken away as dirty money, and they are stashed away, and for the recovery of that, there is an initiative which India, CBI and Interpol has been jointly taking against organized crime, particularly the one which has been funding terrorism.
It's my cry, it's my feeling that SC/ST, when they are represented to higher position, they become dumb and deaf.
जिस प्रकार के शब्दों का प्रयोग उन्होंने महामहिम राष्ट्रपति आदरणीय द्रौपदी मुर्मू जी के लिए किया है, वो चिंताजनक और दुखद है, अशोभनीय है।
One of your leaders has abused the president. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, one of your leaders has abused the president. He's called her deaf and dumb. Mr. Rahul. Mr. Rahul, would you choose to react? Mr. Rahul.
Even as multiple agencies continue to probe the Liquorgate scam, we are now hearing that the ED is conducting searches at about 35 locations in Punjab, Delhi and Hyderabad. Sources have also informed Republic TV that the searches are linked to Delhi's now defunct liquor policy. Now, these searches are being conducted at about 35 locations is what we are hearing. Do remember that this, of course, comes after the fact that the CBI got that Vijay Nair, who was arrested by the CBI, was sent to judicial custody yesterday, and of course the other person who has been arrested by the ED in this case, Amir Mahendru, one of the businessmen who's been arrested by the ED in a money laundering case related to alleged irregularities, has also been sent for custodial interrogation. So searches are currently underway at about 35 locations is what we are learning. Shavan San joins us right now. Shavan, good morning. Give us more details about where these searches are taking place.
Well, therefore, a confirmation now coming in from our top sources within the Enforcement Directorate that there are 35 locations across the country where these searches are being carried out. As of now, the confirmation that we have, therefore, is that searches are being carried out in Delhi, in Punjab and Hyderabad. Now, important to point out here is the difference between the investigation that has been carried out by the Central Bureau of Investigation and the Enforcement Directorate. What turns out is that not just the focus on the excise policy in Delhi, but also the focus that is being put on right now is in Punjab, where we are now given to understand that last time when the searches were being carried out at the excise commissioner's premises, the connection that was basically emerging is that whether at all there too, just like in Delhi, some of these companies were making windfall profits. Now, important to point out, in Hyderabad too, there are certain political links that have emerged. As of now, the Enforcement Directorate has been completely tight-lipped about it. This is the third time that the searches are being carried out. But important to point out here is that a large focus is on right now in Hyderabad and also in Punjab, where these searches are being carried out. As of now, there's already been one arrest that has been made in this case that happens to be of Samir Mahendru. Now, the allegations that have been leveled, just to quickly recap the excise policy case which has been probed by the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate. The allegation being that the excise policy which was drafted by the Delhi government, it was drafted in a manner that had only benefited some players, resulting in cartelization. The fact of the matter here is that the Enforcement Directorate also suspects that there is a money laundering angle involved in it, because these certain companies that we are talking about, these liquor traders, remember, they are the ones who are making windfall profits. And the fact that there was a handful of them who were basically making those profits primarily because of the excise policy was favoring them, ensuring that smaller players are left out from the market. And the fact of the matter is that the Central Bureau of Investigation and the Enforcement Directorate basically suspects that there is a quid pro quo angle attached to it.
Right, absolutely. As you're pointing out, of course, I think this is the third round of raids, Shavan, that the ED is conducting. The second round was wider, perhaps, Delhi, Telangana, Maharashtra, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, all of those places were raided. But for the benefit of our viewers, Shavan, explain to us the, multi-agency probe that is going on. Of course, there's one CBI investigation which is looking into the liquor policy, which is now defunct, of course. And the other part of it is money laundering.
Well, as far as the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate is concerned, the Central Bureau of Investigation is largely looking at how this excise policy was drafted and whether at all this was being drafted by a few people within the party along with the bureaucrats, in connivance with the bureaucrats, and doing in a manner that was only benefiting a few, and the fact that whether at all they were receiving the money or not. Now, what is important for the Enforcement Directorate is to basically look into the money laundering angle, given the fact that there would be certain individuals who had benefited from this particular liquor, from the liquor policy, and the second aspect being that there are 3 to 4 people who both the agencies suspect were extremely close to the Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi, and they played an important role. Rather, they were extremely instrumental in drafting this particular excise policy. Now, the fact of the matter here is that there are larger players who are part of this entire liquor chain. For instance, if you take a look at Samir Mahindru's company, Samir Mahindru has also been arrested by the Enforcement Directorate, and Vijay Nair, who has been arrested by the Central Bureau of Investigation. Allegations essentially being levelled that all of them were basically working hand in gloves, and the fact that they were all working in tandem to ensure that smaller players are basically left out. For instance, in this particular case, one of the clauses that was in the excise policy was that companies over a period of 3 years would have an annual would have a turnover of about 150 crore rupees. Now, a capping of this nature essentially indicates that the policy made the smaller players completely irrelevant, completely redundant, and the fact that they would not be able to participate in the tendering process. The second aspect of course, being that of one-time favors that were basically, or the waivers that were basically given by the government of Delhi. The allegation being that these waivers have basically led to a loss in public exchequer.
Absolutely, as Shavan Sen is pointing out, of course, we are now learning that surges are currently on in multiple locations. Now, they are being carried out by the Enforcement Directorate, which is looking into the financial crimes in this particular case. Searches, we are told, being carried out at Delhi and Hyderabad. Anuj and Amandeep are joining us as well. Amandeep, to you first. Now, we are now getting new linkages that are being drawn to Punjab particularly. So give us a sense of what's happening over there and who all are being raided. What is the focus of these raids?
Well, absolutely, Nupur. Now the Punjab is also under the scanner of ED following this liquor policy that was newly constructed by Aam Aadmi Party. Earlier, a raid was conducted on the Director of Excise and Excise and Taxation as well as the Assistant Director. Both houses were raided. Sufficient documents has been seized by the ED. That was the second raid that was carried out by the Enforcement Directorate in Punjab. Just because, Nupur, the Punjab liquor policy is all being refurbished following the line of the Delhi liquor policy, and since the Delhi liquor policy has been defunct and now it is the Punjab which is under scanner, and in fact the Aam Aadmi Party government is trying to make a shield over this ED raids as well. But yes, the ED has initiated their investigation and in fact their searches as well. Initially the directors has been searched, their houses has been searched, the documents has been collected, and now the contractors who were getting the liquor contracts in Punjab, in fact, they are also under the scanner, and in fact, which was the rule that was followed by while giving these kinds of contracts. So basically, the overall liquor policy is completely under the scanner, just because even the ED believes that there are certain private players who are being benefited by the government while refurbishing this liquor policy in Punjab following the line of Delhi, and in fact, both